if you could take the time to kind of talk about some wild gigs maybe
Yeah.
you had, because I know you've had plenty.
Oh
You know?
yeah, I've had lots of wild gigs. They're all wild in one way or another, though, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah.
uh, you
Are there
know.
any wild Scott Henderson stories maybe you want?
Well, I mean, no, I just hang out with Scott. Kind of the wild part of Scott is like the Scott that I know. I mean, he's a funny guy that I hang out with. I mean, like nobody in LA really could understand why we were like the odd couple. Why are Bruce and Scott best friends? It's like Scott's this weird loner guy who plays fusion, and Bruce is this bebopper guy who, you know, the only pedals he uses are the gas and the brake in his car.
Right.
And so, but I mean, Scott's a swinging, burning player, and we just love each other. And I love his playing, and I don't know. He'll have to tell you whether he can tolerate mine or not. But and we would just get together and have breakfast once a week, and that just sort of started a big, kind of bromance of sorts. And then uh, Troy came by and heard us actually. Came to breakfast with us once, and he says, "Man, this has to be a radio show," and that's how the podcast was born. And
Hmm.
actually, I do believe that just recently, one of the most recent ones was he released some bootleg tapes from us in that restaurant talking,
Oh, that's cool.
like from before the show even started. He surreptitiously recorded us while we were talking at breakfast.
Yeah.
Just complaining and ranting, which is
Yeah.
what we pretty much do all the time. In terms of when you go out and play crazy gigs, you're on the road all the time, and you get thrown in weird places. I don't need to tell you guys, you're doing it now. You just deal with what you get and try to make the most out of it. It's really the most jazz experience there is. You just improvise,
Yeah.
and I mean, sometimes it's pressure from the audience, sometimes it's pressure from the management, sometimes it's pressure from the road, just logistically getting to the club that makes it weird. Sometimes it's people who are actually crazy in the band that makes it weird.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's technical problems, like instruments go out. I mean, I did this one concert in Italy all on the piano because
Oh.
the amplifier they brought didn't work, and my guitar wasn't loud. I mean, there was like 1,000 people there,
Yeah.
and my guitar wasn't loud enough for
Wow.
anything, and I couldn't plug into the for some reason into the PA.
Wow.
They didn't. I mean, like I needed a XLR, and all I had was a quarter-inch jack, right? So there was a piano there, so I just played piano trio for the concert.
Wow. That's legendary.
But you got to do something. And I
Yeah.
think I told some poems, and and maybe sang a few stupid songs. You know what I mean? Told some jokes. You know what I mean?
Wow. I couldn't imagine. I don't know. I probably would have fucking left at that point.
Well, I wasn't going to give up.
Yeah.
That's not. I don't think you would have either. I think you'd have
Yeah.
figured
He
something
would.
out.
Yeah.
At one point, I did take my guitar and I just walked through the audience.
Oh, okay.
And so people that were close enough to me could hear me. So I kind
Oh.
of did a walk the bar. I walked all the way
Right.
through the audience. So like for that 5 minute period, people could hear me for maybe 30 seconds of it.
I got you.
That's cool. Can you tell us maybe one of your most memorable or maybe an experience that had a really big impact on you,
Oh
music wise?
shit, there's
Whatever,
so
free
uh,
association, whatever hits your mind first.
okay, quick. One was like I grew up in San Francisco. San Francisco was a really hotbed of jazz during my years of my late teen years and early 20s. There was a club called Keystone Corner. They had bands 6 nights a week, and it was like the best of jazz. It was like Rahsaan Roland Kurt, McCoy Tyner, Bill Evans, Oscar Peterson, George
Oh.
Benson, Grover Washington, Freddie Hubbard, and in town, Joe Henderson lived in town, Bobby Hutcherson lived in town,
Oh.
Woody Shaw lived in town.
Oh.
And Bobby's band played that club a lot. Like maybe every 2 months they'd do a week. I mean, they were just like kind of almost the house band. And I heard that band, and I'm a huge Bobby Hutcherson fan. And of course, I learned all their music and stuff. And and my dream was to play with him. And one day he asked me, he says, "Hey man, I want to do this thing with guitar. I don't want to do piano this week. Can you do it?" And I said, so here I am, this probably 20 years old, 21, and we go to play, and from the first note, it shocked me how much different it felt being on the bandstand playing with them than it did out listening to them and studying them. Right. Just there was a thing about being inside the groove versus listen to the groove, and it further cemented to me the importance of I have to play with all these people.
Yeah.
I have to play with them. I mean, there are things I'm getting lots just by listening and studying and enjoying. But there's this being part of it and being committed to it and being integral to the whole gumbo of swing or whatever rhythm of sound that really got me. Another one was I was on tour in Italy with it was Jack McDuff actually was the leader, but it was me and him and Jimmy Cobb, the drummer who was, Miles Davis, a million, kind of,
That's
and so we were on the road, and one night we played some little outdoor festival or whatever, and I'm, I speak Italian, so I'm like hanging out with people and hitting on chicks and stuff and drinking at the bar. I'm having a good time. Jimmy's like, by that time, he's probably in his late 70s, I guess, mid 70s. I don't know. And the gig's over. It's time to go, but I'm hanging at the bar, and we had a Fender Twin we were using, and for me that they were taking around, and Jimmy comes up to me and says, "Hey man, we got to go now." I said, "Okay," and I said, "Wait a sec, I got to go get the amp," because I don't need to tell you how heavy a Fender Twin is, but it's like it's a hernia maker, and so Jimmy says to me, "No," he says, "I already got it for you." I said, "What?" I said, I'm thinking, God damn. And he says, he said to me, I swear it, he said, "It's the least I can do for you holding this gig together the way you have been."
Wow.
And, I could kind of tell that he wasn't really digging, like the organ, and particularly McDuff at that part of his life, the time moved, the organ, the time moves around a little. It's not like having a bass player. It's not because the guy's playing bass and he's playing things and the sound is swelling. It doesn't have as much point to it, And so, and Jimmy, I mean, if you're aware of his playing, he's very quarter note centric, And so like Jimmy just said, "Man, the way you're like setting the time that gives me something to play with, and it's like, God, a compliment and a, him saying his gratitude, and he carried my amp. I mean, that kind of sticks out in my life as being a moment, worth remembering."
That's super cool.
I just remember being at at Viva Cantina, and then sometimes Scott would show up.
Yeah.
And then y'all would start whispering about some wild stuff. And then y'all would get a couple of drinks in you, and then the whispers turned into loud whispers. And we would just hear this like epic shit that I don't even know if you want to even mention.
Well, a lot of it's on Guitar Wank,
Okay. So what are some nasty ones that are already on Guitar Wank?
Nasty ones, like about people or about what?
I don't know. No, like some not drama per se, but like some wild stuff,
Well,
that your wife would be kind of pissed if you mentioned.
Oh man, she wouldn't be pissed. She'd be grateful she didn't have to be involved in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, things weird things you just do. I mean, I don't. I can't even remember that shit anymore. I'm just,
Okay.
But unless it comes up in conversation. But yeah, and we do rant a lot. And I have a problem with the guys who play jazz who, guitar players. Okay, this is one I rant about. Is like guitar players playing jazz. It's just too guitaristic. It's not musical. I mean, I call it major major scales with bends.
Mm-hmm.
When I hear that over a standard, I like go, fuck, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's shitting on the jazz tradition, man. That's just a bunch of weekend rock warriors trying to
Mm-hmm.
play tunes. I'm sorry, man. If you're gonna play those songs, there's harmony and there's and play melodies. Don't play scales with bends.
Scales with bands, Jesus.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of that. There's a
Yeah.
lot more of that than you think, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of famous guitar players who do it, and
Mm-hmm.
it pisses me off. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because it just shows a lack of understanding of how the music works. If they sound really great at it, then I give them a lot of kudos for that because it's really hard to make something like that sound great. And if they're moving the music forward by playing a little bit different repertoire, then that's cool. You know what I mean? If they play a repertoire that's well based, that suits that style of playing, great.
Mm-hmm.
But don't do that over Scrapple from the Apple or Honeysuckle Rose, man.
Who can you think of?
I'm not going to mention any names because, it's just, I mean, I don't, not that anybody really listens to either of our podcasts. No one would know that I said it, but,
Yet.
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, that, guitar players that don't listen to the other players.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be a guitaristic, I mean, I know there's musicians on every instrument that do that, but we as guitar players, I think, have a tendency to stare at the fingerboard and not hear what's going on around us as much sometimes.